Well, Senate Majority Leader Reid severely angering members of the Marine Corps and others after he appeared to link the deaths of 8 Marines during a training exercise this week to the sequester budget cutbacks for which he voted. The Majority Leader now denies having made that link, but here is what he said on the Senate floor yesterday.
I'm going to do whatever I can going forward to support the United States military and the families of the fallen Marines. And Mr. President, it's very important we continue training our military. It's so important. But one of the things in sequester is we cut back in training and maintenance. That's the way sequester was written.
Joining us now with reaction, Pete Hegseth. He's an Iraq war veteran and CEO of Concerned Veterans for America. So now, despite the fact that immediately after he addressed what happened when yesterday we believed it was 7, now we're told it is 8 Marines died in Nevada in a training exercise. Despite the fact that immediately after he referenced that, he referenced the sequester. His office comes out, Pete, and says the idea that Senator Reid thinks the Iron tragedy had anything to do with the sequester is absurd and unsubstantiated by his remarks. Your thoughts?
Unsubstantiated by his remarks. They put out a statement like that precisely because that's exactly what his remarks implied. And they may say, well, technically he was talking about future training. Let's be clear. In one sentence he talked about Hawthorne and the Marines, and in the next sentence he talked about sequestration. So regardless of how the logic chain works, he was using that tragedy to try to politically highlight the problems of sequestration. You know, those Marines were out there doing their job. And what I say to Reid is, go do yours. Go actually forge solutions so that something like sequestration doesn't happen.
There is no question, we want to tell our audience, there is no question that this training exercise had been planned well in advance.
Yep.
And it had nothing to do with the budget changes that went into effect because of the sequester. Nothing. Okay, so any attempt, if that was an attempt to link the two, was misguided because there is no linkage, which now his office acknowledges. But there is a question about whether Reid, despite what he says today through his spokesperson, was out on a limb that upset, justifiably, many members of the military. One Marine Corps official saying to ABC News he considers this nothing but pure political posturing on the backs of the dead Marines.
I mean, what else to say? I mean, that Marines got it dead on. It is political posturing, and political posturing is nothing new surrounding the military for Senator Reid. Think about the Iraq War back in 2007. Who was the guy that declared pompously that the war was lost, while our surge troops were fighting a difficult fight and, frankly, turning that war around? Does he ever think about the implications of statements like that, the implications on the perception that there are, families of today, Marines who were lost yesterday, wondering why the Senate Majority Leader is exploiting that for political gain? Those are legitimate questions. And again, we know the Marines had trained this for a long time, and Reid understands that. It's the optics, it's the perception, it's the political manipulation of words that are used to exploit tragedies, and this isn't the first place we've seen that with sequestration.
Well, and the president's political agenda arm, OFA, used to be Organizing for America, his campaign, now it's Organizing for Action, and they're the folks that are, it's all of his former campaign officials who bind together to try to get his agenda pushed. Yesterday at around 10:40 in the morning, they sent out a tweet under the name @Barack Obama. Okay, so they run his Twitter feed showing the First Lady and the President in the Oval Office. It was a picture from a month earlier. It wasn't, real time, but they send it out 3 hours after the news hit the wires of the dead Marines, talking about snack time. And there's a question about tone deafness, Pete. I mean, this isn't the first time. Yeah. We've seen it. Even the president personally, after the Benghazi debacle in which 4 people were killed, he headed to Vegas and said we had a tough day. You yourself criticized Michelle Obama for standing in the Oscars in front of a bunch of Marines who seem to be used as props. You see a pattern here.
There is a pattern. Or at Fort Hood, where someone clearly motivated by sort of radical Islamic beliefs gun down members of the military, and they want to call it workplace violence. Whatever it is, there is a detachment from the reality of some of the threats that we face in this world and the ramifications of that. And in this, hey, 3 hours afterwards in a photo from a month later, I don't think it's a big deal. It's a tweet. But again, it's indicative of a pattern that there are larger issues at play. There's political maneuvering and posturing to be had. Let's not bother with the difficulties and the dirty work that is building the finest military in the world and then putting it in the field to execute properly. And you see it in Afghanistan. There's a war going on right now. We got tens of thousands of troops. And when's the last time we heard an utterance about you really don't?
Last question. Alan West, former congressman from Florida, came on our air last night and said he believes that Harry Reid needs to personally apologize for this. And if he thinks he was misinterpreted, he should say that on camera. He should say it to the Marines and to the service personnel. Your thoughts?
I concur with the good colonel. I mean, again, he knows better. He understands the optics and the perception. So whether he meant it or not, the perception is there. And he should stand up and say this has nothing to do with the argument about sequestration. This is a tragic training accident. We should honor those that we lost and then separate it from the political discussion.
Pete, thank you.
Thanks, Megyn.
Well, less than 45